The man in the White House behind us created with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. We're here in front of the White House to tell Donald Trump, to tell the world, to tell the people who are here, who are not here, who will eventually receive these recordings, who will eventually receive these pictures. And we know there's always one or two Zionists in the crowd ready for their blog or their YouTube, and they want to take our words, jumble it together, and make it another message to their advantage. Well, we tell you, we're here flat out to reject the steal of the century. We are not interested in you stealing more land, and that's the bottom line. So we're here to reaffirm the right of return of Palestinian refugees 73 years later, which I happen to be from the massacred village of Deir Yassin that was massacred on April 9th, 1948. So my parents were displaced in 1948, like millions of Palestinians across the world. And I am just one refugee of millions, over 7.2 million refugees languishing in the refugee camps across the region, from outside of Palestine to Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq. We are all over the entire region, and of course here in the United States of America. So we want to reaffirm our right to return to our homeland. And then the second part of our rally is when we go and convene in front of the Washington Convention Center, is to protest AIPAC, because AIPAC, as you all know here, is the lobby responsible for the continued chaos, for the continued occupation of Palestine. They are the lobby that's responsible to continue to support the illegal occupation called Israel. So that's why we are here today. It's a twofold rally for the right of return and also to protest AIPAC. Obviously, you cannot just protest AIPAC without supporting the Palestinian people. That wouldn't make sense. And that was going on for years. And this is why Al-Auda is here to reassert a pro-Palestinian led movement for the right of return of Palestinian refugees. And if we have some speakers that want to speak here, whoever contacted me, please just get closer. If you represent an organization and you talk to me, I know we have people all the way from Knoxville, Tennessee. Where's the Knoxville people? Are they here yet? We have a group that came from Knoxville, Tennessee. We have people that came from South Carolina. We have people that came from different states. New York is in the house. Where's New York? Right over here. And I just want to give a special thank you to the Neturei Karta over here, the ultra-Orthodox Jews, our friends, that have been coming to support Al-Auda from day one. For 20 years, they've been involved in every single major protest that Al-Auda has had. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you, Rabbi Weiss, and everybody that's with you for coming over. So soon we're going to start having people speak up, and once we're done, we're going to march towards the convention center. So we're going to line up on the sidewalk, because we usually do it on the street, but it's blocked off, obviously. So we're going to go there and start our march to the convention center. And one more thing, do not forget that tonight we have the Palestine Night Out between 7 and 10 p.m. It's basically where everybody that came to the rally sits down and networks for Palestine, and also enjoys some Palestinian entertainment. So don't forget that. It's at Busboys and Poets, right across from the convention center. I think it's 40th and K. Does that sound about right? It's not far from the convention center. So let's do a few chants, and then we'll take speakers that come on up. And we see more people showing up, and we thank every single person that came out here to support Al-Auda and to support Palestine. Free, free Palestine!
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 From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Free, free Palestine!
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 End the occupation now!
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 Long live
free Palestine.
All right, Tom, you ready to speak? Okay, we have from Americans Support Network for Palestine, from Dayton, Ohio, Tom Schumacher.
Maker. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Abbas, and thank you for everyone for coming out today. Certainly appreciate it. We're on a journey here, a human journey, and we all share it, even though our journeys may be different. And I just want to shortly share my story on what led me here today. About 10 years ago, that was the turning point for me. And prior to that, I'm 57 years old, so my awakening happened at age 47. Prior to that, perhaps like many of you, I grew up in a Christian home. And Israel was always, and Jewish religion was always a central part of that. And so I had my belief system growing up that was deeply embedded, ingrained, indoctrinated, if you will. And I'm a poker player, and I was playing online and playing with people all over the world. And this was about 2010. And not too long after 9/11, with all of our continuing efforts in the Middle East there. And invariably, I played poker with a lot of Arabs, and they seemed nice enough to me, which was against my belief at the time. And but I got the courage to engage some of them in some conversation, and basically the question went like, why do you guys hate us so much? We're good people. Whenever a tragedy hits the world, we're the first there, and we just want peace and to help and uplift people. And they kind of laughed and said, where do you get this idea that we hate you? We don't hate Americans, we love Americans. Now, however, what your government is doing with its foreign policy, we don't like. I said, well, give me an example of what you're talking about. And they told me specifically in Palestine and Israel. So they gave me some sources to research into it further. I wasn't, of course, going to take their word for it. And I said, no, thank you very much. I'll look at my own resources. The advent of the internet, I could find my own. Well, after being made aware of a view that was contrary to mine, I had to research this. It was very important to me. I'm ex-military, believe in my country, love my country, served my country, and thought that we were a force of good in the world. And what they were telling me was contrary to that, and it upset me. So I started doing some research with my own sources on the internet, and discovered that everything that they said was true, and everything that I had believed my whole life. Excuse me if I get emotional, because I still carry a great amount of pain and anger from this, but discovered that I had been lied to my whole life, and it flipped my world 180 degrees. I've always been the person, an honest person, and I just want to support what's right. And I found I was on the other side of that, and it was quite upsetting. So, let the chips fall where they may. Even though I had been raised my whole life, and from the news that we see is that Palestinians are terrorists, and they've been at the Jews' throat
You're not excited
for centuries and thousands of years, that this was a religious issue. I found out that wasn't the case, and from that point, and making contact with my Arab friends online, developing a friendship there and cultivating that, and just my nature to always be on the right side of things, it led me down the pathway on my journey to become an activist for human rights, which I always thought I was, but more specifically for Palestinian rights in this case. Because the U.S. had been the greatest enabler of the suffering and the injustice at the expense of the Palestinians, and I wanted to do whatever I could to reverse that. And so I'd heard about this lady, Allison Weir, out in California, and she went as a tourist and journalist to visit, to see with her own eyes, because the stories that she had heard in the American news media just didn't ring true. It seemed so one-sided that there had to be something else. So she went there on her own and discovered how great the Palestinian people were, and seen with her own eyes the injustice that was being dealt to Palestinians there. And she dedicated the rest of her life and founded an organization called IfAmericansKnew.org. And that's how I felt when I discovered the injustice that was served to the Palestinian people, being enabled by the U.S. government, that I felt that my friends, my neighbors, my family, if Americans knew, if my fellow Americans knew what was really going on, they would not stand for it. So how am I going to help? What can I do? Well, after seeing Allison Weir, I said I can't speak as eloquently as her, or with the vast knowledge that she has and the firsthand knowledge that she has, but perhaps I can enable her to do these presentations that she was doing. So I started networking and created an organization called American Support Network for Palestine, and started putting speakers out on a regional basis in Columbus and Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Cincinnati and Dayton and Toledo, and grouping together those resources. Now you can bring a speaker, someone like Allison Weir, to do a regional type of tour instead of bringing her to little Dayton, Ohio. And so that was my contribution, one soul that connected with other souls that could create awareness and educate the public. And I think that's the key to reversing this and bringing justice to the Palestinians, is to create awareness. Most Americans have no idea what the heck's going on there, and of course not educated on that. So the hope part of this journey, and hopefully inspiration, is sometimes we get in a great state of despair and discouraged that, what am I doing? It doesn't seem to be making a difference. But just know that one soul that you reach, say like me, someone who is 180 of you and their perspective and their lifelong indoctrination of what they believed in, can be turned into a force that can then go around and reach others. Hopefully that will give you inspiration to go forth from here on your own journey and do the same. And the hope is that no matter how outnumbered we seem to be, that we can make a difference one person at a time. And I thank each and every one of you for being here today in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the justice for Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you.